I think before I turn to Senator Merkley, there is a very significant bipartisan common cause towards cleaner energy, lower emissions, and taking back Chinese dominance in this area that they have achieved, to use Ms. Hinman's words, unfairly through mercantilistic interventions and cheating, essentially, in the marketplace. So we need to have ways to respond to that to make sure we are not dependent on their supply chains for national security, economic, and climate safety reasons. And I think there's a big bipartisan opportunity, so I'm delighted that we're having this. And Senator Graham, I fully look forward to working with you to flesh out what those strong bipartisan policies look like that support our auto manufacturers and the workers who build these beautiful vehicles. Senator Merkley, and then here's the roster. Senator Merkley, Senator Braun, Senator Kaine, Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And certainly one of the reasons there's so much interest in my home state in electrics is because of what's happening right now. We have 121 fires burning in my state. Over 1 million acres have already burned this year. 2 weeks ago, we had more acreage aflame than all the rest of the United States combined. Massive impact on all parts of our state, both with the fires and the smoke. We simply have to dramatically reduce the amount of methane and carbon dioxide we're putting into the atmosphere. But I'll tell you another reason it's so appealing is because of the cost differential. Now, Mr. Jenkins, or Dr. Jenkins, you were talking about the peak load pricing challenge. My local utility offers a plan where if I'm charging after 9 p.m., it's 7.4 cents per kilowatt hour. If I charge from 5 to 9 p.m., which is peak load in my area, it's 33 cents. So we have a little note on our dryer reminding us to turn it on after 9 p.m., but it really has an impact on simply turning on our charger at 9 p.m. at night, and at 220 volts, our car is completely charged, even if it's depleted by the next morning. Mr. Chairman, you were mentioning the question on whether we need a sophisticated system to tell the cars. This is a system that doesn't require anything sophisticated. It's just a pricing plan where people remember to turn on their electric chargers for their cars at night. And it makes shifts a huge part of our electric consumption in that fashion. Now let's take that cost that we're paying of 7.4 cents. Let's round it off to 8 cents. We get over 4 miles per kilowatt hour. Basic math, it's costing us 2 cents per mile to charge to drive our car. Now we'd take our gas and 40 miles per gallon at $4. That's 10 cents. So it's 5 times more expensive to drive a fuel-powered car. Why do we never hear about this? If it was the reverse and driving your electric car was 5 times more expensive than driving your fuel combustion car, you can bet every fossil fuel company in America would be publicizing that. Why don't we hear that it's 5 times cheaper to drive an electric car? Dr. Jenkins, you want to comment on that?
Well, I do think you raise a great point, Senator Merkley. We're at the early stages of this transition, and I think we do need a lot more advertising and proactive efforts to educate the public from the industry itself, from automakers and dealerships, and potentially from public sources as well. It's a significant cost differential. The upfront purchase prices are higher, and that's another reason why the tax credits established by the IRA are critical to bring down that upfront purchase price. If you build that into the cost of a lease, which many people are turning to purchase new EVs, that is basically a $7,500 additional down payment on the vehicle, and that covers a large amount of the depreciation that you would normally pay for in your lease payments. And that's why the cheapest vehicles on the market right now to lease in virtually every category are electric vehicles. So it's not just cheaper when you operate it, it could be cheaper on a monthly payment basis as well today.
Well, I've talked to a lot of folks who previously were intimidated by those high upfront prices, and they're buying used electrics. Now that we're this far into it, they're buying a used Tesla or a used whatever. And because even though the amount of range declines modestly over time, you're still starting with enough range. You have a lot of range left. So it's really becoming much more affordable to middle-class families through both points that you're making about leasing and about being able to buy a used vehicle. I want to turn to the issue that Senator Stabenow raised about the charging stations. One of the things that has been interesting is how slowly we've developed the national standard for the interface. We now have the North American charging standard, the NACS standard. Rivian's adopted it, Ford's adopting it, or has adopted it, Chevy's adopting it next year. So, Mr. Chairman, your Chevy Bolt, your next Chevy Bolt will be able to use the NACS standard. And Nissan's adopting it. So that's starting to become a solved problem. But one of the ways we could rapidly expand the ability of folks who have cars currently is to have electric charging chargers at rest stops. However, national law, federal law, prohibits that. Is that something we should change?
Yes.
Ms. Gross, would you like to comment on that?
Well, we don't normally comment on policy at EPRI.
Oh,
However,
if you don't want to comment, somebody else, anybody else want to comment?
however, more charging stations are required. They're going to be necessary and they're going to be required for consumers. Consumers demand it, they're going to need it.
Are all of the charging stations that are going to be deployed under the Inflation Reduction Act going to have a NACS standard? Does anybody know the answer to that?
I don't believe that's required, but it's increasingly the case that all chargers are converging to the next standard going forward, and there are adapters now coming to market that allow interoperability. There's already the reverse. You can plug your Tesla into a CCS charge port with an adapter. I'm still waiting for Ford to ship me my adapter for my Mustang Mach-E, but they're sending them for free to all owners of existing Ford vehicles. So this is going to become an increasingly solved problem, as you noted.
This is the Magic Dock adapter, right?
Or just any others. You can have your own adapter you just carry with you in your frunk.
Okay. Listen, my time's up, but I just want to close with this. Everyone, it's 5 times cheaper per mile to drive an electric. And if you buy used electric, you don't have to worry about the upfront high costs because the depreciation's been paid by somebody else, and it's a sweet deal.
And Dr. Jenkins had to show off that he has a Mustang Mach-E after I said I only had Chevy Bolts.